Hey everyone, welcome back to Laura Collins. If you're new here, hello. I'm so glad you found this channel, and trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most jaw-dropping, high-stakes naval chases of the modern era. We're talking about how the United States Coast Guard hunted down a 318,000-ton Russian shadow tanker across the entire Atlantic Ocean using satellites, AI, underwater drones, and sheer psychological warfare without firing a single bullet. This is the story of the Bella 1, Putin's secret oil lifeline, and how America turned it into a frozen, humiliated wreck drifting alone in the North Atlantic. This story has everything: geopolitical drama, cutting-edge military technology, desperate Russian sailors slapping paint on a hull in the middle of the ocean, and a checkmate move so clean it will make your jaw drop. So before we get into it, do me a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button right now, because if this kind of real-world thriller content is your thing, I promise you, this channel delivers it every single week. Drop a comment below telling me which side you're on before we even start. Team Brains or Team Brawn? Let's get into it. December 21st, 2025, the Caribbean Sea. While most of the world is still asleep, something extraordinary is unfolding on the open water. A 318,000-ton oil tanker called the Bella 1 suddenly panics. Its engines roar to life as it makes a sharp, desperate U-turn, fleeing from an approaching U.S. Coast Guard cutter like a cornered animal making a break for freedom. This isn't a routine maritime stop. This is a high-stakes, heart-pounding transatlantic chase that will last nearly 2 weeks and rewrite the rulebook on modern naval confrontation. The ship hunting it down is the USCGC Bertholf, a 418-foot national security cutter made of 4,500 tons of American steel, built for exactly this kind of mission. The Bertholf isn't just fast. It is a floating command center designed to track, intercept, and outlast anything on the open ocean. The Bella 1, by contrast, is a 23-year-old rust bucket. It carries inside its aging hull approximately 2 million barrels of illicit Russian oil, a cargo worth nearly $100 million on the open market. If that oil reaches its destination, it becomes fuel, funding, and firepower for the machinery grinding Ukraine into dust. If the Bertholf stops it, a major artery of Russia's financial war machine goes dark. The math of this chase is almost insulting. The Bertholf screams through 15-foot swells at 28 knots. The Bella 1 lumbers along at a desperate 12. This was never going to be a fair race. The question was never if America would catch it. The question was how America would prove it had the legal right to board it. And that question is where this story gets truly fascinating. The moment the Bella 1's crew thought they had a plan, they made their first catastrophic mistake. They reached for the bridge console and killed their AIS transponder, the digital beacon that broadcasts a ship's identity, location, and heading to every port authority and tracking system on the planet. On every public maritime map from London to Singapore, their 318,000-ton steel giant simply vanished. The Russian sailors were likely high-fiving in the dark, genuinely convinced that by going dark, they had outwitted the most advanced maritime surveillance network ever built. It is like a child covering their eyes and believing they have become invisible. What they did not know, what Moscow apparently forgot, is that the U.S. Navy does not need your permission to see you. While the Bella 1 was trying to disappear into the fog, a constellation of SAR satellites, synthetic aperture radar, was staring straight through the storm clouds. This technology does not need sunlight. It does not need a transponder signal. It bounces microwave pulses off the ocean surface and produces a high-resolution image of everything moving on the water below. The Bella 1 showed up as a 1,000-foot silver streak carving through the waves in real time. But seeing a ship isn't enough to seize it. To legally freeze Putin's bank account on the open ocean, you don't just need a photograph. You need a fingerprint. And that is where the Americans deployed one of the most elegant pieces of maritime technology in existence: the P-8 Poseidon, the world's most advanced maritime patrol aircraft, screaming low across the tanker's path to plant an underwater acoustic trap that the Bella 1 would never even know was there. The P-8 Poseidon didn't come to drop a torpedo. It came to plant a sonic garden. As the aircraft screamed across the flight path of the Bella 1 at low altitude, the crew ejected a string of sonobuoys directly into the tanker's projected course. These are ultra-sensitive underwater microphones that float on the surface and dangle hydrophones hundreds of feet into the deep, turning a stretch of open ocean into a silent listening post. Here is what makes this so brilliant. Every ship in the world has a unique acoustic signature, a mechanical heartbeat created by the specific way its propellers churn the water, the particular vibration pattern of its aging engine cylinders, the low-frequency hum that is impossible to fake and impossible to silence. The moment the Bella 1 passed over that sonic garden, its unique voice was captured, digitized, and uploaded to a massive AI database. The U.S. Navy now didn't just see a ship, they had the Bella 1's DNA. But tracking a ghost across an entire ocean without being detected requires more than a single listening post. The Americans activated the SOSUS network, a massive Cold War-era underwater surveillance system that has since been upgraded with cutting-edge artificial intelligence. Combined with the P-8's sonobuoy field, they created a 500-mile acoustic tripwire stretching across the North Atlantic. No matter how aggressively the Russians killed their radar, no matter how deep into the storm they hid, the unique low-frequency thrum of that 23-year-old propeller was screaming into American sensors. The U.S. didn't need to stay close. They had turned the entire North Atlantic into a giant invisible microphone, and they were simply waiting for the Bella 1 to walk into its own trap. By day 3 of the chase, the Russian captain had realized something terrifying. Despite killing his AIS, hiding in the fog, and pushing his aging engines to their limits, the American shadow had not moved an inch. The Bertholf was still there, patient, precise, and utterly unbothered. In desperation, the captain ordered a series of violent, bone-jarring zigzag maneuvers, slamming the 300,000-ton ship into sharp heading changes in a pattern straight out of the old Soviet naval playbook. The logic was sound in theory. Constant heading changes break the lock of any intercept calculation. The fatal flaw was physics. Every time a ship that size turns, it bleeds momentum and burns a catastrophic amount of fuel. The Bella 1 was spending millions of dollars in diesel just to stay roughly in the same place. Then Moscow decided it was time to send in a bodyguard. Out of the gray Atlantic mist appeared a Russian Project 2380 corvette, the Starogushchi, a high-tech warship bristling with FK-2 radar and surface-to-surface missiles. Its mission was simple: act as a physical and electronic shield for the tanker and scare the Americans into backing off. The corvette activated its powerful electronic warfare suite, flooding the area with high-intensity jamming noise. On the Bertholf's radar screens, the clear silver image of the Bella 1 dissolved into a chaotic mess of static and ghost echoes. For one heart-stopping moment, the Americans lost the track entirely. In the middle of a transatlantic gale with 30-knot winds and waves the size of houses, the ghost ship had vanished into an electronic black hole. The Russian crew was almost certainly cheering, but they had just made the most expensive mistake of the entire operation, and they had absolutely no idea. Here is what the Russian corvette forgot when it started screaming electronic jamming noise at the Bertholf. It completely ignored the autonomous Remus 300 underwater drones the U.S. had quietly deployed days earlier, sitting silently beneath the waves on the Bella 1's predicted route. Those drones don't use radar, they use acoustic sensors, and acoustic sensors are completely immune to radio frequency jamming. While the corvette was burning fuel and electronics, trying to blind the Bertholf, the drone network kept listening calmly and clearly to every move the Russian captain made. The Bertholf's onboard AI, running on processing power equivalent to 10 high-end NVIDIA graphics cards working in parallel, took the intermittent sonar pings from the drones and merged them with historical ship behavior data. It didn't just figure out where the Bella 1 was. It calculated exactly where the tanker had to be in 60 minutes, accounting for the Gulf Stream current the Russians were using to try to mask their engine noise with warm thermal layers. And here is the brutal irony that makes this a geopolitical masterpiece. By activating its electronic warfare suite and flooding the area with jamming signals, the Russian corvette had inadvertently acted as a giant neon sign, confirming for the Americans the precise location of the tanker it was supposed to be protecting. Every electronic scream from the Staragushchi said, "We are here and our precious cargo is right beside us." By the end of day 6, the Bella 1's engines were screaming for mercy. Its bodyguard had revealed the very secret it was dispatched to protect. Moscow was running out of tricks, and the Americans were about to let Russia's own pride become the final weapon used against them. As the chase entered its second week and the Atlantic waters turned from Caribbean blue to the freezing gray of the North Atlantic near Greenland and Iceland, something almost comedic and profoundly desperate unfolded on the deck of the Bella 1. Russian sailors were spotted hanging over the side of the ship in the middle of the ocean, slopping white, blue, and red paint onto the rusted hull in a frantic attempt to claim sovereign Russian protection. The lines were crooked. The colors were bleeding into the sea. It looked less like a flag and more like a kindergarten art project being conducted in a hurricane. High above, the P-8 Poseidon's camera, a system with the zoom capability of a space telescope, was live streaming the entire spectacle in 4K, building a digital evidence locker that proved beyond any legal doubt that this so-called sovereign Russian vessel had been a nameless, stateless ghost ship just hours before. Then the Bertholf signaled that polite observation time was over. The massive cutter surged through 20-foot swells, closing the gap from a mile to just 500 feet, and the radio crackled with a cold, clear American command. Vessel Bella 1, heave to and prepare for boarding. The Russian corvette lost its composure entirely. It veered dangerously close to the Bertholf's bow in a high-speed bumping maneuver, attempting to force the Americans to break off. It was a game of chicken at sea in a freezing gale, with both ships close enough to hear each other's engines over the howling wind. The Russian captain screamed about acts of war over the radio, but the Bertholf, guided by AI-assisted thrusters holding position with surgical precision, simply refused to move. One ship was a chaotic mess of iron and ego. The other was a $700 million predator that had already won and was just waiting for Moscow to realize it. As the calendar bled into the final days of 2025, Moscow played what it believed was its masterstroke. In a frantic midnight update to the Russian Maritime Registry, the Bella 1 was officially renamed the Marinera and formally registered as a Russian government vessel. The Kremlin believed it had just made the ship untouchable, sovereign Russian territory on the open ocean. In reality, Putin had just walked directly into the most expensive trap in modern maritime history. By officially claiming the vessel, Russia had admitted to the entire world that they own and operate the Dark Fleet, stripping away years of carefully constructed plausible deniability in a single bureaucratic panic move. The Americans recognized the trap immediately. Boarding the Marinara now would mean an act of war against an officially claimed Russian state vessel, exactly the confrontation Moscow was trying to bait them into. So the Americans did something even more devastating. They stopped chasing. The Bertholf throttled back and let the Marinera pull ahead into the freezing fog. The Russian crew erupted in celebration. They thought they had escaped. They thought they had beaten America on the open ocean. The cheering stopped when a catastrophic roar echoed from the bowels of the ship. That 23-year-old diesel engine, pushed to its absolute red line for 14 days of violent, high-speed zigzagging through freezing North Atlantic swells, finally surrendered. The main crankshaft snapped with the force of an explosion, filling the engine room with thick black smoke. The Americans hadn't needed to board her. They had simply forced the Grizzly to run until its own heart gave out. On January 1st, 2026, as the world rang in the new year, the Marinara sat dead in the water in a sub-zero gale, engines silent, heaters off, $100 million worth of oil frozen and useless in her belly, because she was now an officially sanctioned Russian vessel. No commercial tugboat, no Icelandic port, no Greenlandic harbor would touch her. Russia hadn't just lost a ship, they had lost their secret, they had lost their money, and they had lost their face all in the same week. And that, right there, is how America made Putin's dark fleet run scared, without firing a single shot, without triggering a single international incident, and without breaking a single law. The U.S. Navy used physics, artificial intelligence, acoustic fingerprinting, and the cold, patient logic of international maritime law to turn one of Russia's most valuable financial weapons into a lonely, frozen, humiliated wreck on the bottom of the world. The Grizzly didn't just blink. It ran, it roared, it painted a flag on a rust bucket in the middle of the Atlantic, and then it broke its own engine trying to escape a trap it had already walked into. Now I want to hear from you. And I genuinely mean that, because the comments on this channel are always the best part. Was Russia's $100 million gamble worth the international humiliation? And here's the real question that's going to start a debate. In the modern world of AI, satellites, and acoustic surveillance, is brute force officially dead? Drop brains or brawn in the comments below and tell me why. I read every single one and I will be replying today. If you're not subscribed yet, now is literally the perfect moment. Just tap that button, it takes 1 second, and you will never miss a breakdown like this again. Share this with someone who loves military strategy, geopolitics, or just a genuinely incredible story. I'm Laura Collin, and I'll see you in the next one. Total, shot in 200 characters. 7 sections, each section, 200, 600 characters. Intro plus, outro included,